Sean, yes, you
Thank
can
you.
begin.
Thank you. Today, we are going to discuss about electoral bonds from Bharat Ki Awaaz, Voice for India. This is an initiative where we are collecting liberal minds of America to think about what is the best we can do for India and bring awareness on multiple things. So today we have Puhazh Gandhi, Sashikanth Senthil, Dr. Muqtedar Khan with us. Puhazh Gandhi is a lawyer, spokesperson for Dravida Munnetra Kalagam, the party which is ruling Tamil Nadu state. So without much ado, I'll invite Puhazh Gandhi for sharing his insights about electoral bonds. Thank you, Puhazh.
Thank you, Shan. Thank you for the kind introduction and for having me here. And good morning to you, all of the fellow panelists. Today we are discussing a very, very important topic, which is actually designed and developed by the BJP. Like BJP has designed and developed many schemes and projects which are aimed at destroying the democracy and establishing a kind of Hindu Rashtra rule in India. Electoral bonds are also one of the series of schemes which has been unveiled by BJP as to how to hijack the democracy through its money power, or through what we call it as the system of crony capitalism. Usually, the political parties take donations in the form of cash or in the form of whatever from the public. Public funding of political parties is allowed in many countries because the whole concept is the political parties, when they run for the elections, they have to spend lots of money, and this money has to come from legitimate sources. So BJP in the year 2017 devised a mechanism which is called as electoral bonds to donate to political parties, wherein the donor's identity will not be revealed. This is what their whole scheme of things. How it came into a picture? Because these electoral bonds are nothing but bearer instruments which allow anyone, including the companies and corporates in India and abroad, to donate infinite sum, that is any amount of money, to any political party without revealing their identity by subscribing to EBs. And these electoral bonds are bearer bonds which were issued by only one authorized dealer, which is the State Bank of India. No other bank or nobody else can issue this type of electoral bonds. But when somebody goes to State Bank of India and subscribe to the electoral bonds, their identity will not be disclosed to anyone. This is the promise which the BJP government gave, and this is what the whole scheme was a system which they try to ensure. What they said is we will not tell who you are to anybody, so that without any fear or favor you can subscribe to an electoral bond, and this electoral bond can be submitted to whichever political party you want, whether it is BJP or Congress or even DMK. And these political parties can encash their electoral bonds so that nobody will know who is the donor. This is the whole concept. So that I need not worry about whether I should be donating to a opposition party or a ruling party. The ruling party will not know that who is donating. So I will not be victimized. But here the issue is, see the whole system of things. One is the State Bank of India will know who is the donor, because when anybody subscribe to an electoral bond, they have to submit the KYC, and even in the balance sheet of the company or the individual who is subscribing to the electoral bond, they have to mention for what they are subscribing for so and so amount. It is an X amount for electoral bonds. They did not tell to whom they are giving it to, but this electoral bonds will to that particular political party. It may be BJP or Congress. So when that particular electoral bond with that serial number is encashed, the State Bank of India will know who is the person who is subscribing to these bonds. Therefore, the union government technically, because the State Bank of India is nothing but a bank which is under the control of union government. So the union government will know who is exactly subscribing to what amount, and to which political party these bonds are being given. So accordingly, they can target through their EDs whether these particular funds are legitimate funds or illegitimate funds. So what happens technically? Only people who are favoring ruling political party will be able to subscribe to these electoral bonds. This is one issue.
Recording in progress.
This is one issue with respect to the transparency. It is not anonymous. It is only selectively anonymous. Even, for example, when these electoral bonds are introduced, the then RBI Governor Urjit Patel made a very serious observation, or even went to the Supreme Court and said, this will not ensure transparency. What we said is, we are concerned, I'm just reading it out, we are concerned that the issue of EBs as bearer instruments in the manner currently contemplated has the possibility of misuse, more particularly through use of shell companies. This can be subject the RBI to a serious reputational risk of facilitating money laundering transactions. What he's saying is, using shell companies, because how the political system functions is, for example, as far as BJP is concerned, BJP is the ruling party in the country, and also it rules in many states. The black money which the BJP and its businessmen who generated can be sent abroad through various channels, through Hawala channels, and routed back to the country and parked in shell companies. Shell companies are nothing but namesake companies which exist only in address without any transactions. And later, these shell companies can subscribe to electoral bonds, and the fund, which is being the corrupt funds, will come back into the system of BJP itself. So this is, and if you see the timeline also will establish. For example, we should not see this electoral bond issue in isolation. We have to see a series of events. In 2016, the BJP government brought in demonetization. And who will know the currencies are going to be demonetized? It is only the ruling establishment. So even before 2016, they established these shell companies. These shell companies, before demonetization, the funds are being routed to these shell companies and parked there. Later, in 2016, demonetization happens, and 2017, electoral bonds were introduced. So this is a very clear design. And in 2018, the MCA, the Ministry of Company Affairs, struck down 3.8 lakh companies as defunct. So between 2015 and 2018, there were 3.8 lakh companies which mushroomed, which means for what purpose? And this has been struck down. So it is a very clever design. That's why I use the term, it is nothing but a token in the Hawala system. Many of, particularly in the NRIs, we would have come across this, the transfer of funds unofficially from one border to another border, where there will be a person, there will be or maybe a remitter in the foreign country. If somebody wants to send the money from abroad, particularly in the Gulf countries and also in Malaysia and Singapore to India, there will be a remitter who will send the money from abroad. What he will sell, there will be a recipient in India. For example, if I want to receive the money, the remitter will, I want to get some, say, for example, 10 lakh rupees from abroad. My person in Malaysia will hand over that 10 lakh rupees to that remitter in Malaysia. And the remitter will say, give an identity, either in the form of half of the rupee note, the half piece of the rupee note, or the number which is mentioned in the serial number which is mentioned in the rupee note. That particular number, I have to send it to Malaysia. The person who is receiving here, I have to send it to Malaysia. And the funds comes to India. The person who collects the funds, what he does is, he will be instructed that the person with this particular serial number or this particular piece of rupee note will approach you. So he calls me and he calls me and asks, what is the serial number? I have to tell that serial number. This serial number will act as the intermediary for this whole transactions. This is what electoral bond is. The person who just subscribes the electoral bond in State Bank of India, he will have a serial number. This serial number has to be given to the political party. The political party goes to the State Bank of India, encashes it. So it is only that particular political party. Which political party? That is the ruling political party. The others will not know the donor, because State Bank of India is not under the control of anybody else.
You muted yourself.
You're muted, bud.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Bud, you're muted. Unmute yourself, bud.
I think
Someone else.
Hello. Okay, you're none.
Hey, Ethan here. What time do you usually get started? Or am I late or something?
Hello.
Yeah.
What was that?
So
hell is that?
I hate Zoom bombers, don't you? I hate Zoom
Yeah,
bombers.
I think they're Zoom bombers. You should kick people. These Zoom bombers or Zoom spammers. I don't know these little hackers that hack into little Zoom calls.
Sean,
I think-
make
I
me
think
host.
that-
Can you
I'll
mute the
manage this.
Miguel? Yeah, can you, Miguel? His name is Miguel.
Sean, make me host. I'll manage this.
Like
Yeah,
that.
Sean,
Don't
mute
try to
everyone.
me like that.
Mute everyone and kick
Appreciate
out
it.
all these,
This is my
advances.
mommy's. My
When
mommy's.
do we usually start around here?
I'm so sorry for these young moments, but Puhazh, or you're needed.
so can I proceed?
Yes.
Yes, sir. You can proceed.
Who has a bomb?
Sean, looks like we have a troll attack in this meeting. So it looks like someone is extremely unhappy discussing this electoral bonds. So we apologize for
Sir,
that.
yeah, sir, you can unmute. Mr. Puhazh
Yeah.
Gandhi, you can talk. Yeah.
So this is a clever design to basically not only for the corporate cronies to fund the political process. If I go a step further, this is to whitewash the ruling party's black money, basically. For example, when we talk about Adani or any corporate which is close to BJP, these particular companies are not doing any kind of business in real sense. These are all just the parking center for the black money of BJP. And this particular black money will be routed back into the system in the form of fictitious using fictitious shell companies. And later these fictitious shell companies will subscribe to the electoral bonds. This is the whole scheme of system which has been devised. For example, in 2019, an RTA information by ADR, which clearly says that out of 3,429 crores of rupees, crores of electoral bonds subscribed in SBI, 76%, that is 2,606 crores of total bonds were issued to BJP. Is encashed by BJP. So, and only the remaining 24 went to the other political parties. So you can see the veracity of the damage these electoral bonds are doing. And that is the reason this type of political funding, that is electoral bonds or anonymity, because you cannot be anonymous. There is an agency in between, and this particular agency is under the control of the government. So only the parties which are the companies or corporates which are close to the ruling establishment will subscribe to these electoral bonds. That's why it is banned in many countries, including Germany or Switzerland. Earlier they tried to do that. Even in France, they tried to do that. But because of these malpractices, they just stopped it. But as far as BJP is concerned, this is only a series of design against which even cases are being filed in the Supreme Court. But as usual, the cases in the Supreme Court never see the end of the light, or it will not be taken till BJP is in power. And it came up for hearing, but it was urgent, nothing has happened. So we have to be very cautious, and we have to take these type of issues up to the general public, because only the public forum can, or the public opinion can make some difference as far as the present situation in India is concerned. So these are my opening remarks. I'm willing to take up any questions at a later point of time. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Austin, for saving us. I think our talk is really famous, looks like. Without much ado, I'll invite Mr. Sashikanth Senthil for kind of giving a quick introduction on this topic. Go ahead, Sashikanth. Sashikanth is a former IAS. He has resigned the service, Indian administrative service, in protest of many of the fascist acts of the current government. And he has been joining hands with the Indian National Congress and helping us kind of maybe get to new territories. Thanks a lot, Sashikanth. Please go ahead, Sashikanth.
Thank you, Sean. Hope I'm audible. Somebody's opened the whiteboard. Hope I'm audible. Hello.
Yes, you are, sir. You are, sir.
Sorry. Hi. Thanks a lot. I'm extremely privileged to be in this very erudite panel. Hello, Puhazh, and also Muqtedar ji. So Puhazh has very much, very nicely explained what this is about. Let me also try to explain in a very simple way. I'll just try to fill in where there are some details which people might be interested. So basically, it's a very funny scheme. In this, when the BJP government talks about so much of restrictions on black money and transactions which are anonymous, here is a scheme which they have made, which is a complete opposite to what they say. Like, in any fascist system, what they say and what they do are completely different, and a very good understanding can come when you analyze the legal systems which any authoritarian regime brings, and this scheme is a very good example of that. Basically, anybody would tell that here is a transaction where you don't know who is giving what amount of money to whom, and that's the crux of it. When the donor and the person receiving it are not known, and that too in a public realm, it's a direct violation of the fundamental right to know. So how about making a legal scheme for that? Basically, you legalize corruption and crony capitalism using laws which are like this. So if you see the intention of, I think somebody's against share a screen. Is it okay if I continue?
Please do.
Yeah, right. So if you see the intention of this scheme as given by the press release, it's that the government has notified this scheme of electoral bonds to cleanse the system of political funding in the country. That's the word used. And the way they have proposed, let me give a little bit of details. They have amended 4 acts in this entire thing. But before that, how did they manage to get such a blatant a Ponzi scheme into a legal system like ours? It's itself is very it's like amazing. They introduced this whole bill as a money bill during the 2017 in the 2017 Finance Act, which means that it goes out of the scrutiny of Rajya Sabha. When the Rajya Sabha protested and sent 5 amendments that this is not a money bill, you cannot do this, they simply rejected the money bill and then passed the act, which means complete scrutiny of Rajya Sabha is not there, since they don't have a didn't have a majority there. And that itself is a blatant violation of the democratic process. And many such acts they have brought in like that. And then what have they done? They have done amendments to 4 acts. First is the Representation of Peoples Act 1951, which puts a lot of restrictions on how political parties are funded, and what are the restrictions. Basically, under this 29C section of RP Act, every political party is supposed to maintain a record of whoever donates any amount, any donation, which is more than 20,000 rupees. Of course, ECI has a lot of problems with this, but still, it is a provision, and this is necessary to even claim rebate under the Income Tax Act. So they have completely exempted this from electoral bond, which means today anybody pays any amount to a political party in any other instrument other than the electoral bond, the political party will have to maintain the records. But if they give an electoral bond, then you don't have to maintain a record, no matter whatever is the amount is. Which means I want to, as Puhazh was saying, I wanted to whitewash some of my money and then give it to a political party. I'll rather take a electoral bond and give it, and there will not be any record in my side or their side. Secondly, they have done an amendment to the Companies Act. What they have done is, they have previously in the Companies Act, for political donations, there was a ceiling. They have removed that ceiling. And the ceiling was like 7.5% of the 3-year average profit. Now, any company can donate anything, irrespective of whatever is their profit or loss. So if I have a company, I just make a shell company. No matter what my performance is, I can just take an electoral bond and transfer it. So I can do this transaction in a day. The next is that they have also amended the Income Tax Act, because now political parties, when they get the money inside, that is BJP itself, they want an income tax exemption. So they have given income tax exemption to anything which comes under electoral bonds. So it's just like, a complete pipeline going from one end to the other end. And the last thing is a very interesting thing. They have amended Section 21J6 of the FCRA Act, Foreign Contribution Regulations Act. And all of us might be knowing, for the last couple of years, they have been controlling this hugely on NGOs and civil society organizations. But for political parties, they have just relaxed this FCRA in a way that even companies which has a foreign majority share can actually provide electoral bonds, which means it's just opened a door where foreign governments foreign money can come inside the political party. And since the system has no label, who gives and who takes, anybody can donate anybody to any political party. For example, today China might be actually funding BJP. We really don't know. And why would somebody make such a provision? It's like very interesting and very inquisitive to understand this. And there's a section 29B of RP Act which prohibits government companies from funding any political party. Now, we don't know if there is any government funding companies, like these corporates, public sectors are also funding BJP. God only knows. So why would somebody make such a scheme? It's like a blatant, it's an insult to all our intellectual thought process that we have in this country. And I feel, this entire electoral bonds, the way it has been handled is absolutely, mind-boggling. And in 2018, I think the CPIM, along with the ADR and Common Cause, had gone on a petition, and it is still pending. And ECI has submitted an affidavit in this. And Election Commission of India says, which is very interesting also, which I didn't expect. Election Commission of India, on a point-to-point rebuttal, completely does not agree with this scheme. Here is a scheme which Election Commission of India doesn't agree. The Parliament of this country doesn't agree. But then there's one party which has made this Ponzi scheme to divert all the funds into it. It's like really, really interesting. And the latest figures is mind-boggling. I think up to 22, they have got around 9,188 crores, all the political parties put together. That is 7 national parties and 24 regional parties, out of which BJP has got almost 6,000 crores. And the other national political parties put together is hardly 1,500 crores. This is the situation. And, here is I think Professor Muqtedar Khan will be in a better position to explain under the political theory of how these governments work and how they have been working, authoritarian systems have been working. But let me tell you that, this is a complete insult to the entire process of reforms or political reforms that we're trying to make. And I can only end with that. And if we study the details of the system, it's like, in another level. So I'll be very happy to take some questions later, and I will end my opening remarks on this.
Thank you, Senthil. Thank you, Shashi. So sincere apologies for the inconvenience. I think already we are famous because of which Sandeep pointed out some of our friends in BJP may not be wanting us to talk. Looks like. So anyway, without much ado, I'll invite Dr. Muqtedar Khan. Thanks a lot, Shashi and Pugal, for setting up a great context. After your context and introduction, Dr. Muqtedar Khan, then we'll go for Q&A, and then I'll invite audience. Sorry, we are running a little late, but I think people are enjoying the conversation. We'll continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean. And it's very difficult to come after such people like Mr. Gandhi and Mr. Senthil and still offer some useful information. One way to think of the electoral bonds is the return of the company Raj. So there was a time before 1947 when we were ruled by East India Company. And now once again, India is being ruled by companies which essentially own the government through this process, the electoral bonds. Prior to the electoral bonds, the UPA had something called the electoral trusts, if you remember. So what happened with the electoral trust was that you would create a non-profit trust, and then companies would donate to the non-profit trust, and then the money would be routed to political parties. So there was a, shall we call, a money trail from private sector to non-profit sector to political sector, and you could potentially, if you were meticulous, trace all the money which was coming from the private sector to the political parties. But what the electoral bond does is creates two things. It creates tremendous lack of transparency. And number two, it also creates an uneven playing field. So for example, in 2019, I think of all the money that came in, 80% went to the Bharatiya Janata Party and 20% for the rest of the political parties. So the rest of the political parties are also playing the same game, but not at the same level. And you will understand how, when you understand how the electoral bond works. So the lack of transparency, number one, is to the voter. The voter can never know which corporation, which individual, which country is voting is financing a particular political party. You know, for those of you who are in America, you know the NASCAR drivers, when they drive their cars, they have the logos. Even I think Indian cricketers now have logos of the companies that sponsor them, the IPL players. So if we had our politicians wearing logos of the companies that finance them when they enter the parliament, can you imagine that the prime minister walks in on the back here, the big sticker saying Alibaba, and you suddenly realize that Alibaba is the biggest financer of one of these ministers. So it's like that. We don't know who is financing them as voters. This is democracy 101. This is one of the most important aspects of democracy. Is your government pursuing public interest or special interests? If there are hidden special interests who own the government's political parties in power, and I am thinking that even some powerful rich companies might pay all the parties, not just the ruling party, so that they control the political sphere. So one lack of transparency is with regard to the public. The public doesn't know, as voters don't know. The second lack of transparency is ECI. The Electoral Commission of India does not know. It is their job to run a fair and free election in the country. And they are unable to do that because they don't know where the money is coming from. So the ECI is a constitutional body. It is mandated by the Constitution to run a pure election. And now it is unable to do that because of the way the money is coming. The ECI is not aware of how much money has come in. And after some time, we will know the total. We might even know how much political parties have each received. That's why we are able to say that BJP got 80% in 2019. And even with the electoral trusts, which were before electoral bonds, BJP was getting about 80+% of the corporate money that was coming. So ECI doesn't know. The third thing is where the playing field becomes uneven. So when an electoral bond is given from a private sector, it could be a foreign company, it could be a domestic company, to a political party. If it is given to the opposition party, the ruling party knows that which company is funding the opposition party, which means that the ruling party has the time and an opportunity to go and basically tell the company that, look, if you're going to fund our opponents, we could change the legislation to undermine your business here at home, or we could even send ED and do a tax evaluation on you. So the instruments of the state can be used to essentially threaten and blackmail corporations and companies and institutions and individuals who are funding the opposition party. But if the private sector buys bonds and gives it to the ruling party, then the opposition does not know that. So if you're in the opposition party, even if you're an influential and charismatic leader, you don't know which companies are financing the ruling party. And so there is that uneven playing field where the ruling party knows who is funding the opposition party, but the opposition party does not know who is funding the ruling party. I suspect that the international, this whole business of providing some kind of cover to shell companies who can give fund is perhaps because of the diaspora's engagement in politics. And given that the American, the Australian, and the British Indian diasporas are now quite wealthy and influential, and their politics is aligned more or less with just one movement in India and one political party, I think it is quite possible that the electoral bonds are also an instrument by which the Indian diaspora is funding political parties in India. So that is one aspect of this whole business of lack of transparency. The other thing is this business of quid pro quo that is happening. So you could make a deal and say, look, I'm going to sell you an airport if I win the election, but I want you to give me 1,000 crores. And so later on, when the party wins the elections and sells an airport to a billionaire or to some business house, the public does not know that this is a quid pro quo. And so democracy is sold and auctioned off. So these are two of the biggest problems that I see with the current electoral bond system, that it provides transparency. So it encourages a quid pro quo between the public sector, between the government and the private sector. And the second thing is that it completely disadvantages the opposition party. But the problem is that, I mean, yes, this is constructed by the BJP, but if any other political parties were to win the national elections, then they will also have this opportunity to do that. And it would be interesting to see if in 2024 there is a change of government, whether the electoral bonds will be one of the things that will be removed from the roster. But there's one more thing that I would like to inform our viewers, that is that the strength of a democracy, is directly in proportion to the knowledge of the voter. The more informed the citizen is, the more engaged the citizen is, the more vibrant the democracy is. And the bridge between these, the responsibility of informing and alerting the public, is the role of the media. And given the nature of India's media today, they have completely failed. I cannot understand why there is not more intense discussion on mainstream media about electoral bonds. I saw one 2-minute piece by Rajdeep Sardesai for India Today that was so pathetic that it doesn't actually explain in detail the tremendous threat that electoral bonds pose to Indian democracy. And I have a feeling that it is perhaps because even the media could be funding the government through these electoral bonds. So it's a very devilish instrument. The president of Common Cause in India, who was a secretary of the Indian government, called it a very unusual beast. I want to amend that and call that this is a very anti-democratic beast. The sooner citizens fully understand the threat that it poses to one of the most cardinal elements of democracy, which is transparency, because it is only through transparency that you can have accountability. And if you don't have transparency, there cannot be accountability, there cannot be rule of law, there cannot be democracy. And I'll stop with that.
Thank you, Muqtedar Khan. And I think without much ado, I'll go for the next round of session, which is the question answer. So give me a minute so that I'll do some logistics. Okay. So what role do electoral bonds play in influencing electoral outcomes, and how do they compare to other forms of political funding? So maybe whoever wants to go first, you can go, and maybe even one of you more also want to respond, please respond. Otherwise, I have good 10 plus questions. So we can go one speaker each for each question. You can raise your hand and you can just respond. You can, all of you are unmuted. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
There are two things that money is what makes these elections go around. Without money, you cannot campaign. Without money, you cannot advertise. So the more money that you have, the more advantage you have. That is one thing. But the second thing is that I think in India, and please forgive me if I'm wrong, people actually give money to voters. And so if you have a lot of cash lying around with you, you can literally buy the vote and therefore buy power.
Awesome. So Shashi, Pugal, any one of you also want to chime in for this?
Yeah, of course, today's world, money is the power, the muscle has gone in kind of capturing elections. It's all about money. And, there are so many ways in which it can influence the elections. And even if the electoral bonds, if you see when the maximum number of electoral bonds have been bought, it is either before the general elections in 2019 or in 2021 when there were 11 state elections. So that goes to very clearly say how things are. And I also wanted to highlight what Mr. Muqtedar Khan said about quid pro quo. So there are limitations in electoral laws about how much you can spend formally, but then informally, if some corporate is helping me to fund my elections from their own side in various ways, then I can probably the quid pro quo will work in many ways like that. So it's like a very, very direct connection.
Awesome, Shashi. And Pugal, you want to chime in, or I'll go to the next question?
Next question.
Sure. So what measures are in place to prevent misuse of electoral bonds and ensure their integrity in the electoral process? You want to take it, Pugal?
Okay. See, this is the whole problem, actually. This is the whole problem, and this is what we are discussing and debating today. We are unable to see an effective mechanism to curb these electoral bonds, particularly under BJP, because BJP has devised this mechanism not only for electoral funding per se, because electoral funding is one of the aspects. The other aspect of electoral bond is how to park its own black money and then take its black money at the time of elections. This is a design created by BJP. For example, this particular system or scheme has got a larger ramification than what we perceive. China is an aggressor. One simple example I would like to point out. China is an aggressor in the border. China has encroached upon roughly 4,000 or 5,000 square kilometers in the border. But still, the government is allowing the Chinese companies to participate in government bids, particularly partnering with Adani or maybe other companies which are close to the government, which are bidding for government projects. So what is the arrangement between these particular companies and the BJP? How, on the one hand, the BJP is claiming that they are taking on China at the border, which is actually an enemy country, and then allowing the same country's companies to participate in government bids. So there is some missing link is there. Whether they are receiving electoral bonds from these type of companies. For example, I'll just give some examples. One company called PMC Projects India Private Limited. This is a partner of Adani Group. They are involved in making seaports and airports and doing the government contracts sitting in Adani's office in Gujarat. So what is the arrangement between this particular company and BJP? Likewise, the Shanghai Tunnel Engineering Company. This is the company which is being granted contracts worth more than 2,000 crores for constructing Delhi's underground metro. Likewise, Taizhang Hong Kong International Limited. They are the suppliers of wheels for Vande Bharat train. So even Vande Bharat train is not made in India. Half of them are made in China, wherein our soldiers are fighting the Chinese soldiers at the border, and they are also encroaching upon. But their business houses are able to walk in easily with government projects in India. So is there any connection between these companies and the BJP in the case of electoral funding? That means your elections are not free. Your elections are controlled by even Chinese government or even sometimes by Pakistani government. This is the danger of electoral bonds.
Awesome. Shashi, you want to chime in? Or Muqtedar?
I wanted to make just one point, is that there is no limits now in how much money a company can give using electoral bonds. So for example, I think in the past, if you were worth, say, 100 rupees, if you're a company, then you could give like 6, 7, or 5% or 3% of your market capitalization or something. But now you could give all of it. You could create a company which has no assets, nothing but just cash. And they could take 100% of their cash and buy electoral bonds and give it. So you could create fake companies all over, both at home and abroad, who can just funnel money to the government. So there are no built-in. First of all, there are no sunset laws in the sense that we don't know when it will end. It will keep continuing. The second thing is that there is no agency or government independent institution identified to review this whole thing. That is why there is no checks and balances in that system. There is nobody who can hold the SBI accountable or the government accountable. For example, if the IRS person looks at my taxes and tells my opponent, he can lose his job and go to jail in the US. But if the SBI starts leaking information to the government, or if the government requests who is giving the opposition party money, the SBI cannot tell the government, sorry, sir, we can't give this information to you because the other side of the information is. So there are no such built-in mechanisms. They can be done this. It can be done. You can tell the State Bank of India, you could have a law which says that you do not share the information about this electoral bonds. But I think the critical aspect is to reveal who is giving the money. That is where the real issue of controlling the electoral bonds is, to remove the veil of secrecy. Once the veil of secrecy is removed from the donors, then I think that all possibilities of corruption will be minimized.
Thank you, Muqtedar. And how do electoral bonds impact the level playing field for political parties and candidates in elections? Shashi, you want to go?
Yeah, it's very evident, isn't it? It's like, you just see the amount of money which is being given, bonds which have been done in favor of BJP and the others. It's like, 80:20, all other national parties put together. So, this funding for the party is not only during the election period. Now, today, if you see, BJP is erecting huge offices in every block, and the amount of funding it can do to its cadre during non-electoral period also has a huge impact on the narrative building. So, all through the year, there's a party which is in the election mode, trying to, get into the mind space of people by erecting huge structures, huge things. So it's completely lopsided. Other thing which also I wanted to point out, we'll also have to remember media houses are also corporates. At the end of the day, if a political party has the funds to fund a particular media channel, they're going to completely flip and do an entire agenda setting in another way. That's what is happening in India. Manipur is burning, and here is our prime minister doing some kind of inauguration. That's what is being highlighted everywhere.
Yeah.
So I know, I have been involving very closely with Karnataka elections. So nowadays there's a package given to a media channel, like, way 6 months before an election, saying that like 20 crore, 30 crore packages are given. And media channels from that point onwards toe the line. Tamil Nadu is now one good example. Now we can just see the entire thing flipping towards this party. And today there's a huge, yesterday there was a huge rally, completely funded. So it has made this entire, this whole fair playing stuff a complete joke, this entire electoral bond. And that's why I'm like amazed, like the way it's been captured.
Awesome. Pugal, you want to chime in for that? Or you want to go to the next question? Sure. Sure. What are the perspectives of different stakeholders, including political parties, citizens, and civil society organizations, on the effectiveness of electoral bonds? Pugal, maybe I'll start with you.
No, see, we are always, in a sense, against this concept of electoral bonds in its present form, because though they say, as I made with my opening remarks, they say it is anonymous electoral bonds. It is actually, technically, it is not anonymous. It is selectively anonymous. That means the ruling party will know who is donating what amount exactly, whereas the other parties will not know what is being given to them. So this selective anonymity is the key for making this whole system a bizarre system. Because, as I said, with respect to the foreign companies, even criminals or maybe scamsters, or people like Vijay Mallya or Nirav Modi or maybe Mehul Choksi, they can all keep on escaping through these electoral bonds, because they can send their funds, or they can pay the ruling establishment through electoral bonds, and the BJP can still keep quiet. So the whole thing is how effective to modify these electoral bonds, whether these electoral bonds are required or not. That is a discussion and debate which has to be taken when there is a fair and neutral and justifiable establishment in place. Today, that is not the case. The BJP has devised it for its own use. The BJP has devised it for creating its own ill design. So at this juncture, our only point should be how to object to these electoral bonds and remove these electoral bonds. Maybe later point of time when neutral people come to power or so, we can rework on how electoral funding should happen, how the electoral funding should be neutral, and it should not allow for this corrupt money or maybe laundered money to come into the system. All those things can be parked. But today, in this setup, there is no scope for such a democratic discussion or democratic debate in this present ruling establishment. Therefore, in this present form, the electoral bonds has to be discarded.
Awesome. So just want to be cognizant of all your time. So we were scheduled for 1 hour, but since we got slightly delayed, I am just wanted to ask all your permission to continue for next maybe 20 minutes or 25 minutes. Is that okay, Shashi, Pugal? Dr. Muqtedar, thank you. Muqtedar, I'll go with you next. Are there any international examples of similar systems, and what lessons can be learned from their experiences? For example, how American world political parties raise funds?
Oh, in the United States, we have people, if you want to understand how the United States, we have undermined our own democracy, you just have to Google 2 words, Citizens United. And the Supreme Court passed a decision where they said that companies are people. And so now companies in America have freedom of speech. And as a result of that, now companies can give money to an unlimited amount of money to corporations. So we have PACs and we have dark money. And so while we can keep track of individuals, like you can find out how much money I have given all my life and to whom, but we can't find out who is contributing to PACs and whether there's a coordination between candidates and the PACs. They are supposed to be independent of the candidate. And also, we also have dark money that is coming in, and that is a big problem. That's why I tell my students that there are no more elections in democracies, there are only auctions. So we are going to have an auction because the person who brings the most money to the table usually wins. Of course, there are upsets both in the US and other places. But I also think that there is a more insidious thing going on in India, that I was very startled when I saw the data on electoral trusts, the instrument that existed before electoral bonds. And that was an instrument that was created by UPA. But even with that, in the 2012 to 2014 cycle, BJP got more than 70% of corporate money, as opposed to all other parties. I think it was 76 or 86%. You can check it out. And so one of the challenges is that because India theoretically was a secular and socialist democracy, what has happened is that you have seen the emergence of a right-wing party that is essentially extremely business-friendly. And as a result of the ideology of BJP, it has a natural affinity to corporations. It's like the Republican Party used to be. Now Democrats get a lot of money from IT companies in the US, but in the 1990s, the Republican Party, which was on the right, would get a lot of corporate funding, and the Democrats would get money from the unions. But what has happened in India is that corporations have realized that, oh my God, now we have a political party which is business friendly and which can win. And so one of the things that I think the political parties who are challenging BJP in India, they have their task cut out. Not only do they have to ensure that instruments such as electoral bonds are exposed, but they also have to win the confidence of the business sector. So if you have 2 or 3 powerful billionaires in India saying, no, we're going to go with INDIA, and we're going to send in money there and help them win because we like their policies, those instruments are going to work. The electoral bonds are going to work for them as long as these businessmen are willing to stand up to bullying or blackmail from the ruling party. Like Elon Musk is standing up here to, I'm not a big fan of him, but he is definitely standing up to the left, which is in government, Biden and others. So I don't see that kind of backbone in the Indian business sector to go against the government. They all seem to be really dead scared of the government.
I think that's a very nice point. In fact, I am on a hunger strike today, 4th day, standing with the Peter Friedrich, who's a human rights activist, which is fighting against the Rokannas of the world. The big question what we have is whether they are really left, Biden and Kamala Harris. So that's another topic for another day. But I'll go to the next question. But are there any international references you want to touch upon, Shashi Tugal? Or I can go for the next question.
I think you can go to the next question.
Sure. What are the potential alternatives or reforms that can enhance transparency and accountability in political funding in India? Shashi Tugal, whoever wants to take it.
Yeah, the Election Commission itself and also the Law Commission has come out with a lot of papers on reforms. Which has been completely, in a funny way, just before 2017, there has been series of papers coming on electoral reforms, especially about political funding, enhancing transparency in the whole process. And what this Finance Act of 2017 has done is whatever protections we had, whatever little transparency we had, completely it erased it. Very seldom in modern history you see such an act which just erases whatever was remaining in a democracy. That's why I find this act very bizarre. Like, just to give another, like, if today Shan wants to donate to a party, let's say you're donating 25,000, the party will have to keep an account and make a record of who Shan is and what money he gave and what date he gave, and also how it's spending. But if Shan opens a company in China and then wants to give some 200 crores to a party, there's no record of Shan giving this and no record of this party spending this. An income tax rebate also goes. That's the way they have, wheeled a system which was, which had some transparency. So,
But won't the State Bank of India have a record of the bonds that it sells?
Yeah. at the end of the day, yet to see, if it was a real bond, they should not. It's a bearer's bond.
Yeah.
So they should not be having, in my opinion. But they might still have some provision by. I know how the government works. In bureaucracy, they'll push one column there where you have to fill up something, and they'll not be known outside. But if it's a pure bearer's bond, then they should not have. But I think they have. But the point is, statutes, four statutes have been amended blatantly. It's like horrible. How FCRA? How can you allow? Why would you make that amendment to allow, government, foreign companies which have majority stake in a company to fund a political party? No, that requires a debate in this country. Now, so it's all like bizarre. So I would say, for electoral reforms, Election Commission itself, even suggested reduce that amount to 2,000 rupees. It's 20,000, which is this mandatory. Election Commission suggested so many other reforms. So it's like talking about that itself looks absurd in front of this electoral bond scheme.
Super, awesome. I have an interesting question for Pugal next. Thank you, Shashi. In case in 2024, if all of us are working very hard, Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance forms the government. Let us assume 2024, going by the current anti-incumbency and the continued apathy of Prime Minister Modi on Manipur and many other things which they have been doing for past 9 years. In case if India Alliance comes, how can electoral bonds be made more transparent and accessible to the public for better public scrutiny? Pugal.
There are two things. One is, as Sashi rightly pointed out with respect to the electoral reforms. In my opinion, the reform itself should be directed against the electoral bonds. Removing this particular electoral bond itself is a electoral reform in its true sense, actually. Because you cannot use these bonds. The reason is this not only leads to corrupt practices, this not only leads to whitewashing of your black money, that is the ruling political establishment's black money, but also if you see the pattern of disinvestment or privatization ever since electoral bonds were introduced or just before electoral bonds were introduced, it was going in an alarming pace. The government is divesting all its portfolios, the government is disinvesting. One classic example is Air India. In Air India, out of 60,000 crores, the government or the Tatas assumed responsibility only for 15,000 crores, out of which 2,500 crores were paid, and remaining will be settled to the banks. The remaining 45,000 crores of debt was just imposed on the heads of the citizens. So, is there any connection between these electoral bonds and Tatas? How this deal took over? I wrote an article in the editorial of Hindu on this issue. Likewise, if we come to any other disinvestment, all disinvestments, the speed in which it has been done during the BJP regime, particularly after electoral bond, is simply outstanding or amazing. They just sell everything. So, is there any understanding? So here is a scheme which paves way for only corrupt practice. So even when we come to power, I don't think we should continue with electoral bonds, or at the least we should make it completely, I wouldn't say anonymous, because in my opinion, there is no need for any anonymous political funding. The political funding has to be explicit. Why should there be anonymity? The moment you say anonymous in particular funding, that means you are encouraging black money, nothing more. Anonymous in financial transaction is money laundering. Where is the question of anonymous in electoral funding? Even as I said, China as an example, Chinese company is an example. What if Chinese state-owned enterprise or state companies are paying the government and even taking the territory for that as a quid pro quo? We may even lose territories. This is a much larger danger which we are facing. So my only point is, even when we come to power, there should not be any anonymity in electoral funding. It has to be explicit.
Awesome.
I just want to add one point here.
Go ahead, Shashi.
Yeah, it's not only it's unconstitutional. It's directly against 19(1)(a) of the right to know. It cannot. What beats me and frustrates me is, the courts sitting over this matter for so long, from 2018. This is 2023. In such a blatant matter. So I feel this is like, you have these Ponzi schemes, it survives for 3-4 years and then they collect all the money and then run away. I think this is something like that. Everybody knows this can't survive legally in any way. And when any other government comes in and doesn't scrap this, I think it's like a blatant joke on the entire democracy. And the judiciary, I can't understand what's happening in that. How would they allow, what is wrong in giving a stay? I really don't understand. Every time the SBI is releasing a new tranche, and the moment before an election, state elections, they just roll out all these money. It's like it beats everybody.
There are a couple of things I wanted to add. One is that the electoral bonds are not available all the time. There is a very short period when you are available. So it is quite possible that the ruling party can tell its partners that the electoral bonds will be available 2 months from now. You better start liquefying and do what is necessary, while the opposition party and their crony capitalists will not know that. And so they may not have the liquidity to buy the electoral bonds at that time and give it to them. So there is that issue of the timing. And I think that it was supposed to be only for federal elections. Now it has been made available to state elections. And even then, there was this issue of how it was extended for 2 weeks. But to answer the question, the moment INDIA wins, it is now in their interest to use the same electoral bonds, right? So the question really arises, why would they do it? So one way to challenge that is to ask INDIA to put it on their election manifesto that if they win, they will do electoral reforms, and in particular, eliminate at least to the minimum, eliminate the anonymity of the donors, and also cut off foreign donors. At least these two things. One is to remove the anonymity of which corporations, which individuals, which organizations are doing, and the second is to simply cut out foreign companies completely. In the US, at least if I were to give advice to the US company, to the US government, which is in the interest of India, then I will have to register as a foreign agent. And this is not just about money, it's just talking, etc. Right? So I think the foreign interference should be cut off. Those are the two things. Maybe INDIA can promise that we will ensure that there is no anonymity. And number two, we will also ensure that there is no more foreign money coming into this country.
Awesome input, Muqtedar. I think both of the voices what you get to hear in this audience, I think are very powerful voices in the India Alliance. Certainly they will take our voice back to the manifesto team, and hopefully the common minimum program of this alliance will have some of this interesting, important reforms which the country should see. Let us see. I have another important question on a digital aspect, Shashi. So what role do digital platforms and technology play in the implementation and monitoring? In case if Dr. Muqtedar Khan says becomes a reality, how we can use digital way of monitoring some of these things?
No, it's, digital. See, when you don't have a mandate, when you have a mandatory provision of not to maintain records, how would, whether it's digital or it's non-digital, doesn't matter. Today's world, all transactions in banks or core banking and everything can be put out in time. The information can be put out on a website in time about what is happening. But when you bring in an act and say that, no, you should not do this, you should not even write down the name of the person, you should not even, have records. So that's what is, completely beating. So digital, I don't think there's anything that technology has to do with, giving out information. So there's no real way except, you, like as I said, the SBI keeps some kind of records inside them, and government tries to see it and use it for their own purpose. But I don't think there's any real digital tool which other panelists can also.
I have a question either Mr. Gandhi or Mr. Senthil can answer. Isn't there a controversy whether the bond is actually an electronic or whether it is a physical paper? Because I think it is supposed to be only electronic, right? So the transfer of funds, so that when you redeem it, it's an electronic transfer of money. But is there a physical bond? Like if there are physical bonds, then people might make photocopies and keep them, right?
I don't think it's physical, it's electronic. I don't think any bank no transact. Yeah.
There are no physical bonds. They're all digital instruments.
Digital, but even then, when they make the digital transaction, that digital transaction can be submitted to that political party as a proof for any quid pro quo arrangement. So the person who the donor, there will be always a linkage between the donor and the political party to whom he is donating that particular bond, even if it is digital.
This
So
is
another interesting fact is that these political party will have to redeem the bond in 15 days.
Yeah.
So if not, there's a prior communication. Yeah, I'm getting this. Please do it. How does that happen?
And it is mandatory for companies and corporates to mention in their balance sheet that the amount for what amount they have spent. That is for electoral bonds. They may not tell to which political party they have given, but they have to mention it in the balance sheet. So that exposes how much amount they have taken in electoral bonds, and through this they can interact with the political party, BJP or whatever political party, and claim any quid pro quo arrangement. They can identify themselves.
If you look at the SBI's assets and liabilities report, you could also guess, right?
Yeah.
That this X marked amount is potentially cash that hasn't been in cash. So if you can look at their reports at a closer frequency, which is less than 15 days perhaps, I think it is possible to trace. So the numbers that we get in articles saying that in 2019, there were about 12,000 crores worth, I think they are coming from corporate revelations and not from the government's transparency on this issue.
So, thank you. And how can the involvement of corporate entities in political funding through electoral bonds can be maintained to at least even in the current stature, in case if it is going to continue to maintain the democratic integrity? Can be maintained, Puhazh?
Can I ask this question very quickly for you? So I teach a class on good governance, and I'm a political science professor. So the most famous professor on corporate good governance is at University of Delaware. And so we decided to have a meeting of let's teach together, good governance and good corporate governance. And when I went to meet him, his building is right next to mine. And until that day, I had not noticed that the building is called JP Morgan. So JP Morgan is funding good governance, good corporate governance. I just said, okay, there's no way we can teach this class because he's a JP Morgan professor and I'm nobody. So, so I think one way to get to this is through laws on good corporate governance, maybe. But that will apply only for Indian companies, not shady shell companies.
Yeah.
But here the problem is the government has come up with a structure of corporate governance which legitimizes this corporate misgovernance. That is a problem.
Yeah.
So in Indian context, subscribing to electoral bonds is a good corporate practice currently.
Yeah.
That is how it's legitimized. That is what the problem is.
Awesome. So maybe I think it's time to look at the Tata's balance sheet and Adani's balance sheet to find out how many 1,000 crores they have transferred to BJP and maybe how many rupees they have transferred to Congress.
The problem is that by looking at the balance sheet, you will only know the subscription amount of EBs. You will not know how much amount has been transferred to where. That is the anonymity.
Okay.
That is a quid pro quo arrangement.
I think the good governance practice would be to give money to everybody. Just in case. Just in case. Just like in Karnataka, for example, corporations who didn't give money to Congress might be regretting it, right? They said, oops. They have a big oops there, right? So if you are smart, you would make a prediction. Okay, this party has a 60% chance of winning. This has a 40%. So I'm going to give 60% to them and 40% to them. I'm sorry, I don't want to advise people on how to use
This right now in India is even to survive and not let any ED or IT raid on you. You have to pay.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Only thing is make the transaction transparent, and only tax-paid money should be funded for political parties. Most of the corporates will not even go for funding.
That is another debate as to why is political contributions tax exempt. I don't understand that. Especially for corporations. There's also this 2,000 rupee thing, right? If you give less than 2,000 rupees, there has to be no account. So like I could go every day and give 2,000 rupees, 1,999 per day for 365 days. And the political party does not even have to keep a record of it, nor report it, right? They can just keep taking the cash from me every day.
True.
How can electoral bonds be a tool for increasing political participation and civic engagement among citizens? Is it can be a real kind of some positive aspects like this is possible?
Protest against it.
Protest against it.
That's the best way to engage.
Yeah, let us do that in the coming days. What are the future implications and possible developments regarding the use of electoral bonds in India, at least till 2024? Even if there are going to be reforms going to come from the opposition alliance, which is the India Alliance, the Indian National Developmental and Inclusive Alliance. What do you guys see as the implication till then? It's like how the elections can be played or rigged with the help of this. I see this is one of the top biggest scam which Modi and co have pulled through on India. So just wanted to hear from all three of you on this. This is my last question, and maybe in case if you have time, we'll ask some few audience questions. Go ahead. Pugal, Shashi. Till 2024, till 2024, are there any ways we kind of will be control some of the future implications and possible developments on the use of this?
Should I go or Sashi?
Yeah, please go. Please.
Shan, the issue is very simple. You have to divide the contribution between two. The contributions through electoral bonds towards BJP, the contribution towards through electoral bonds to non-BJP parties, particularly the opposition parties. You have all these kind of systems of EDs and CBIs monitoring all this with the banks and everything. So those who are contributing to non-BJP opposition parties will be easily targeted because they can identify where the funds are going. In the sense, those who have subscribed to electoral bonds have to necessarily give that electoral bonds to BJP. So out of 100 rupees, if 60 rupees has come to BJP and 40 has gone to somewhere else, the subscribers of this 40 can be targeted through EDs and other things. So there will not be any fair play, or nobody will be daring to subscribe to any electoral bond for any opposition parties. This will be only for the ruling party. So this is the murder of democracy. This is a clever design which the BJP and Mr. Modi has designed to capture power through this crony capitalism.
Can I throw a hypothetical to this before Sashi answers this? So let's say that I'm the leader of an opposition party and I say, look, as of today, July 28th, if I win and become the prime minister, I will go after every company who uses the electoral bonds. And I will scrutinize every business practice of theirs until I find somewhere where I can nail them. And so you are warned as of July 28 that if I win, I will come after electoral bond usage. That is the only way you could reduce it. But what might happen is that more money might go to BJP to make sure that you lose, right? And so the corporations could call your bluff. So if you're very sure that you're going to win, a very populist and very popular leader could do that. But other than this, I see no way in which you could prevent the use of electoral bonds in 2024 elections?
The only hope, another hope, is judiciary. The case is pending. There might be some relief, is the other thing. So parliament is not a place now we can gain anything. So we just have to wait. It is in front of the Chief Justice's bench, so we have a little bit of hope.
Yeah. So, Pugal, thank you, Shashi. I think it was an awesome conversation. I just wanted to check, do you guys want to hear out anything from audience? There are a few questions, but I said I'll check with you guys in case if you guys are open. Pugal, Shashi?
A couple maybe, please.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Thank you, Shashi. Thank you, Muqtedar. Neil, you want to go?
Oh, Kartike. You should take Kartike. Very smart guy.
Okay. Neil, you were asking. Yeah, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Hey, sorry, I couldn't unmute.
Sure.
So, my question is, most likely already answered, but given all this, that electoral bonds are only one-sided, and now we have 9 months of time for election, 2024, correct? Is the old traditional political donation channel open, or what do you how is the Congress or the INDIA planning to fight this? Because it's a matter of fact, you don't have money, it's going to be very difficult to win the election. And you guys have mentioned 80% is going to BJP or even more. So are you able to manage in 20%, or what's going to happen?
Thank you, Neil. Go, Shashi. I think it's for Shashi.
Yeah, I don't think we should worry a lot about things that we can't control. We have our own methods of working politically, and money is important, but that doesn't mean that opulence is required. In India, we have other ways of communicating. I think the opposition should really now work on a very creative way, and that's a space I think BJP lacks a lot. It's all brute, so the alliance can actually do a lot of good if we start thinking about creative ways of communicating, creative ways of politicking, and move forward. And of course, and also I know the way I understand corporates is the moment they see wind this side, the funding will start coming.
Could you tell us in Karnataka how much BJP got and how much the others got from?
Oh, the funds.
Yeah.
That's no way we can. That's what the whole scheme is about. Just close everything.
Yeah. Kartika had a question or a comment.
Pugal, you want to chime in for that?
No,
you are good? Sure. Kritika, you want to go next?
Yeah.
Go
Actually,
ahead.
I have two questions.
Go with one, Kritika, quickly, shortly. Thank you.
Yeah. So, how to spread this knowledge to the local common people in all languages?
Oh. Gandhiji, boliye aap.
So that is what mainly through media and social media we need to educate them, because as far as social media is concerned, we have a very clear digital divide between the south and the north. For example, Tamil Nadu and Kerala tops with internet penetration. In Tamil Nadu, the internet penetration is roughly 74%, and 90% of the adults are having mobile phones. Therefore, the dissemination through social media, these type of informations is effective as far as states like Tamil Nadu and South India in general is concerned. But whereas In North India, this may not work in its fullest sense for the simple reason. The North India, for example, in Uttar Pradesh, the internet penetration is only 46%. It is lagging far behind. And people with access to mobile devices are less than, say, for example, 60 to 65%. So therefore, the party structure, the civil society structure has to be robustly increased in these areas to disseminate these type of informations. Only then we will be able to take the message forward.
I have a quick comment. So now you have this video out there, so you could at least share this in southern states where English is common. Before I got ready early for whatever reason, so I was sitting at 8:10 to talk about it. So what I did was I recorded a 10-minute Hindi discussion on electoral bonds, and hopefully I will have it running by in 2 or 3 a.m. tonight, my time. So tomorrow you can share the Hindi version as widely as you possibly can. I will send it to Shan and Shan's group. And you can also download this video, this discussion that we had, and make it a YouTube video and get Hindi, Malayalam, and all of those subtitles for the language. And then try to disseminate the YouTube video as widely. If you have funds, you can also advertise that YouTube video. And so more and more people get to see it on Twitter and other places. So it can be done.
Super, very good answer. So we have to check it and we have to do it. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Shan.
What?
Yeah, Shan. My question is over.
Yeah, thank you. So without much ado, I think I want to thank...
Sashikanth also join. Shall I ask the same question to him?
No, that's fine. Thank you,
Okay.
Kritika. So hope you are able to hear me. Okay, Austin.
Yeah, we can see you too.
Yeah, finally. So like the anonymous
Yes,
Bond, I am
Shan.
coming as a Bond, Mr. Bond, anonymous Bond. Finally showing my face. Okay, thanks, Shashi. Thanks, Google, from bottom of our hearts. So thanks, Dr. Muqtedar Khan, for taking time out. I think this is a very intellectual discussion. Hopefully, we are looking to conduct more discussions around this, helping build our political discourse. Let's look forward for good discussions in the days ahead. Maybe EVM security is what we are looking at next. Looking at Sam Pitroda and Kannan Gopinathans of the world. Looking to see if you guys can also participate in that. Thank you. Thanks once again for everybody for taking time out.
You need to get our security up also for these meetings.
Yeah. We never planned. We never got Zoom bombed till now. I think that means we are becoming famous and we are getting into the radar of the right wing. Looks like
It's the Twitter thing. The fact that you posted it on Twitter is why I think you got that.
Yeah. They are watching. They are watching each and every of our moves. So I think I want to take the last.
I hope they learned.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hope they learned how dangerous electoral bonds are to democracy.
Yeah. So
Especially given that we are the mother of democracy,
Maybe Shashi, Pugal, if you guys want to say any closing remarks, go ahead.
No, my closing remarks is this. I want to reiterate what Muqtedar ji told, that there's a huge amount of responsibility on the intellectuals and people who can learn, read, write, to understand and educate and understand and sort of disseminate information to people in the way they understand, in the way they digest it. So we will be missing out and out of our responsibilities if we don't do this job of unveiling the lies and the deceit politically to people at this stage. So I think if at all there is somebody who should be taking the blame entirely for is us who can digest stuff like this and still not able to communicate. I think that's the realization that I think we should have.
Well said.
Thank you, Shashi. Go ahead, Puhazh.
I agree with what Sashi said. Instead of just looking at as a 2024 election, we need to understand and we need to disseminate this type of unfavorable and unlawful designs of BJP. Because BJP represents a kind of what we say, the megalomaniacs who just want to hang on to power. They does not represent any ideology. They are not passionate about Hindus. They are not passionate about India. Nothing. These are all only, if Hindus are useful to them, they will use the name tag Hindus. If India is useful to them, they will use the name tag in India. Otherwise, they will change it to Bharat. So these are all bunch of megalomaniacs who want to hang on to power forever at any cost. This needs to be exposed. This needs to be exposed in each and every design which they create. They create the design. As Professor said, whether electoral bonds are useful for the democracy. The problem here is they themselves are creating this undemocratic design. So to whom we will go and say this is not favorable for democracy, with whom we will argue that. So our role should be to highlight these designs in a simple and proper manner. First of all, at the peripheral level, yes, this discussions on English and educating even people who are living abroad, because people who are living abroad are presumed to be more well educated than people who are living in many parts of the country. But even people who are living abroad are not able to understand or foresee through these type of evil designs. Once we enlighten them, we need to take it up parallelly to the masses in the local languages, in the local commune, local villages, through the party structure, through the civil societies, so that the people at the grassroots level will understand this is not the India which we stand for. We need something else. We need a better India. We need a better life. We need a better life for our children, our parents, our family, and our friends. Unless we do it at the grassroots level, this peripheral discussions will only be an intellectual discussion, which may not yield much result. So we have to focus on the other aspect of it as well. Thank you.
I want to say two things, Sean. One is that there are NGOs in India who are in court right now, like Common Cause is one of them. So for those of you who have friends with means, please ask them to support these NGOs. I did not know about Common Cause until I downloaded this article from the Economic and Political Weekly and read about it. And it is written by the president of the Common Cause. So please support NGOs who are fighting. And the second thing is that this is a poison. It's like a poison gas, this electoral bonds. It will destroy democracy. It is important. Democracies die in darkness. That's what Washington Post says, but it is true. So I think that regardless of the 2024 election, I hope that there are some serious people in India who will start a movement for rule of law, transparency, accountability, to strengthen India's democratic credentials. So regardless of the election issue, so it should not be politicized. This is like a common threat to everybody. And if we depoliticize this, I think there might be people on all sides who might want to preserve India's democracy.
There is one another non-profit, which is SNS, Satark Nagarik Sangathan, which is run by Anjali Bharadwaj. She's also a famous RTA activist, done a lot of RTAs on this aspect. I think in fact, I'm thinking back on RTA, which was again a brainchild of Manmohan Singh and Rahul Gandhi and all the entire DMK and many other who are now standing as opposition alliance. The RTA is the only instrument, a democratic instrument left out in this current government. So we should see how we can ensure transparency and accountability in the days ahead by supporting some of these non-profits. But hopefully, let's work towards this 2024. And I think that can help us. Thanks a lot. And as a closing remark, I just want to tell that I am on my 4th day of hunger strike, supporting Peter Friedrich, who is a human rights activist here, who is wanting Ro Khanna, the chair of India caucus, to be speaking about Manipur issue in the American House floor. So I'm supporting him. My ask is resign Modi, as many of you guys ask. I think day after tomorrow, we are doing a protest in Fremont. In case if you guys are listening to this, please join us. If you are in Bay Area, if you are listening to this through Tamil America TV, Please subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Keep supporting us. Hopefully, we'll be coming up with more topics in Bharat Ki Awaaz Voice for India. Thank you, guys. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Sashi.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.